chapters 9 through 18 of the book of Isaiah, from the Young's Literal Translation of the Bible. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Mark Penfold. Chapters 9 through 18 of the book of Isaiah, from the Young's Literal Translation. Chapter 9. As the former time made light the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, so the latter hath honored the way of the sea, beyond the Jordan, Galilee of the nations. The people who are walking in darkness have seen a great light. Dwellers in a land of death shade, light hath shone upon them. Thou hast multiplied the nation, thou hast made great its joy. They have joyed before thee as the joy in harvest, as men rejoice in their apportioning spoil. Because the yoke of its burden, and the staff of its shoulder, the rod of its exactor, thou hast broken as in the day of Midian. For every battle of a warrior is with rushing, and raiment rolled in blood, and it hath been for burning, fuel of fire. For a child hath been born to us, a son hath been given to us, and the princely power is on his shoulder, and he doth call his name Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Father of eternity, Prince of peace. To the increase of the princely power and of peace there is no end. On the throne of David and on his kingdom, to establish it and to support it in judgment and in righteousness, henceforth, even unto the age. The zeal of Jehovah of hosts doth this. A word hath the Lord sent into Jacob, and it hath fallen in Israel. And the people have known, all of it, Ephraim and the inhabitant of Samaria, in pride and in greatness of heart, saying, Bricks have fallen, and hewn work we build. Sycamores have been cut down, and cedars we renew. And Jehovah setteth the adversaries of reason on high above him, and his enemies he joineth together. Aram from before, and Philistia from behind, and they devour Israel with the whole mouth. With all this not turned back hath his anger, and still his hand is stretched out. And the people hath not turned back unto him who is smiting it, and Jehovah of hosts they have not sought. And Jehovah cutteth off from Israel head and tail, branch and reed, the same day. Elder and accepted of face, he is the head. Prophet, teacher of falsehood, he is the tail. And the eulogists of this people are causing to err, and its eulogized ones are consumed. Therefore over its young men the Lord rejoiceth not, and its orphans and its widows he pitieth not. For every one is profane, and an evildoer, and every mouth is speaking folly. With all this not turned back hath his anger, and still his hand is stretched out. For burned as a fire hath wickedness, briar and thorn it devoureth, and it kindleth in thickets of the forest, and they lift themselves up, an exaltation of smoke. In the wrath of Jehovah of hosts hath the land been consumed, and the people is as fuel of fire. A man on his brother hath no pity, and cutteth down on the right, and hath been hungry, and he devoureth on the left, and they have not been satisfied. Each the flesh of his own arm they devour. Manasseh, Ephraim, and Ephraim, Manasseh, together they are against Judah. With all this not turned back hath his anger, and still his hand is stretched out. Chapter 10. Woe to those decreeing decrees of iniquity, and writers who have prescribed perverseness, to turn aside from judgment the poor, and to take violently away the judgment of the afflicted of my people, that widows may be their prey, that the fatherless they may spoil. And what do ye at a day of inspection? And at desolation? From afar it cometh. Near whom do ye flee for help? And where do ye leave your honor? Without me it hath bowed down in the place of a bound one, and in the place of the slain they fall. With all this not turned back hath his anger, and still his hand is stretched out. Woe to Ashur! A rod of mine anger, and a staff in their hand is mine indignation. Against a profane nation I send him, and concerning a people of my wrath I charge him, to spoil spoil, and to seize prey, and to make it a treading place as the clay of outplaces. And he thinketh not so, and his heart reckoneth not so, for to destroy is in his heart, and to cut off nations, not a few. For he saith, Are not my princes altogether kings? Is not Calno as Carchemish? Is not Hamath as Arpad? Is not Samaria as Damascus? As my hand hath got to the kingdoms of a worthless thing, and their graven images, greater than Jerusalem and than Samaria, do I not, as I have done to Samaria, and to her worthless things, so do to Jerusalem, and to her grievous things? And it hath come to pass, when the Lord doth fulfill all his work in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem, I see concerning the fruit of the greatness of the heart of the king of Ashur, and concerning the glory of the height of his eyes. For he hath said, By the power of my hand I have wrought, and by my wisdom, for I have been intelligent, and I remove borders of the peoples, and their chief ones I have spoiled, and I put down as a mighty one the inhabitants. And my hand as to a nest getteth to the wealth of the peoples, and as a gathering of forsaken eggs, all the earth I have gathered, and there hath not been one moving wing, or opening mouth, or whispering. Doth the axe glorify itself against him who is hewing with it? Doth the saw magnify itself against him who is shaking it? As a rod waving those lifting it up, as a staff lifting up that which is not wood. Therefore doth the Lord of hosts, send among his fat ones leanness, and under his honor he kindleth a burning as the burning of a fire. And the light of Israel hath been for a fire, and his Holy One for a flame, and it hath burned, and devoured his thorn and his briar in one day. And the honor of his forest, and his fruitful field, from soul even unto flesh he doth consume, and it hath been as the fainting of a standard bearer. And the rest of the trees of his forest are few, and a youth doth write them. And it hath come to pass in that day, the remnant of Israel, and the escaped of the house of Jacob, do not add any more to lean on its smiter, and have leant on Jehovah, the Holy One of Israel, in truth. A remnant returneth, a remnant of Jacob, unto the mighty God. For though thy people Israel be as the sand of the sea, a remnant doth return of it, a consumption determined, overflowing with righteousness. For a consumption that is determined, the Lord Jehovah of hosts is making in the midst of all the land. Therefore thus said the Lord Jehovah of hosts, Be not afraid, my people, inhabiting Zion, because of Ashur. With a rod he doth smite thee, and his staff lifteth up against thee in the way of Egypt. For yet a very little, and the indignation hath been completed, and mine anger by their wearing out. And awakening for him is Jehovah of hosts, a scourge like the smiting of Midian at the rock Oreb, and his rod is over the sea, and he hath lifted it in the way of Egypt. And it hath come to pass in that day, turned is his burden from off thy shoulder, and his yoke from off thy neck, and destroyed hath been the yoke because of prosperity. He hath come in against Aiath, he hath passed over into Migron, at Michmash he looketh after his vessels. They have gone over the passage. Geba they have made a lodging place. Trembled hath Ramah. Gibeah of Saul fled. Cry aloud with thy voice, daughter of Galim. Give attention, Laish. Answer her, Anathoth. Fled away hath Madmenah. The inhabitants of the high places have hardened themselves. Yet today in Nob to remain. Wave its hand doth the mount of the daughter of Zion, the hill of Jerusalem. Lo, the Lord Jehovah of hosts is lopping a branch with violence, and the high of stature are cut down, and the lofty are become low. And he hath gone round the thickets of the forest with iron, and Lebanon by a mighty one falleth. Chapter 11. And a rod hath come out from the stalk of Jesse, and a branch from his roots is fruitful. Rested on him hath the Spirit of Jehovah, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and fear of Jehovah, to refresh him in the fear of Jehovah, and by the sight of his eyes he judgeth not, nor by the hearing of his ears decideth. And he hath judged in righteousness the poor, and decided in uprightness for the humble of earth, and hath smitten earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he putteth the wicked to death. And righteousness hath been the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness the girdle of his reins. And a wolf hath sojourned with a lamb, and a leopard with a kid doth lie down. And calf, and young lion, and fatling are together, and a little youth is leader over them. And cow and bear do feed, together lie down their young ones. And a lion as an ox eateth straw. And plaid hath a suckling by the hole of an asp, and on the den of a cockatrice hath the weaned one put his hand. Evil they do not, nor destroy in all my holy mountain. For full hath been the earth with the knowledge of Jehovah, as the waters are covering the sea. And there hath been in that day a root of Jesse, that is standing for an ensign of peoples. Unto him do nations seek, and his rest hath been honor. And it hath come to pass in that day, the Lord addeth a second time his power, to get the remnant of his people that is left, from Ashur, and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from isles of the sea. And he hath lifted up an ensign to nations, and gathereth the driven away of Israel, and the scattered of Judah he assembleth, from the four wings of the earth. And turned aside hath the envy of Ephraim, and the adversaries of Judah are cut off. Ephraim doth not envy Judah, and Judah doth not distress Ephraim. And they have flown on the shoulder of the Philistines westward. Together they spoil the sons of the east, Edom and Moab sending forth their hand, and sons of Ammon obeying them. And Jehovah hath devoted to destruction the tongue of the sea of Egypt, and hath waved his hand over the river in the terror of his wind, and hath smitten it at the 7 streams, and hath caused men to tread it with shoes. And there hath been a highway for the remnant of his people that is left, from Ashur, as there was for Israel in the day of his coming up out of the land of Egypt. Chapter 12. And thou hast said in that day, I thank thee, O Jehovah, though thou hast been angry with me, turn back doth thine anger, and thou dost comfort me. Lo, God is my salvation, I trust and fear not. For my strength and song is Jehovah, and he is to me for salvation. And ye have drawn waters with joy out of the fountains of salvation. And ye have said in that day, Give ye praise to Jehovah, call in his name, make known among the peoples his acts. Make mention that set on high is his name. Praise ye Jehovah, for excellence he hath done. Known is this in all the earth. Cry aloud and sing, O inhabitant of Zion, for great in thy midst is the Holy One of Israel. Chapter 13. The burden of Babylon that Isaiah son of Amoz hath seen. On a high mountain lift ye up an ensign, raise the voice to them, wave the hand, and they go into the openings of nobles. I have given charge to my sanctified ones. Also I have called my mighty ones for mine anger, those rejoicing at mine excellency. A voice of a multitude in the mountains, a likeness of a numerous people, a voice of noise from the kingdoms of nations who are gathered, Jehovah of hosts inspecting a host of battle. They are coming in from a land afar off, from the end of the heavens, Jehovah and the instruments of his indignation, to destroy all the land. Howl ye, for near is the day of Jehovah, as destruction from the mighty it cometh. Therefore all hands do fail, and every heart of man doth melt. And they have been troubled, pains and pangs they take, as a travailing woman they are pained, a man at his friend they marvel, the appearance of flames, their faces. Lo, the day of Jehovah doth come, fierce with wrath and heat of anger, to make the land become a desolation. Yea, its sinning ones he destroyeth from it. For the stars of the heavens and their constellations cause not their light to shine. Darkened hath been the sun in its going out, and the moon causeth not its light to come forth. And I have appointed on the world evil, and on the wicked their iniquity. and have caused to cease the excellency of the proud, and the excellency of the terrible I make low. I make man more rare than fine gold, and a common man than pure gold of Ophir. Therefore the heavens I cause to tremble, and the earth doth shake from its place, in the wrath of Jehovah of hosts, and in a day of the heat of his anger. And it hath been as a roe driven away, and as a flock that hath no gatherer. Each unto his people they turn, and each unto his land they flee. Every one who is found is thrust through, and every one who is added falleth by sword. And their sucklings are dashed to pieces before their eyes. Spoiled are their houses, and their wives lain with. Lo, I am stirring up against them the Medes, whose silver esteem not, and gold they delight not in it. And bows dash young men to pieces, and the fruit of the womb they pity not. On sons their eye hath no pity. And Babylon, the beauty of kingdoms, the glory, the excellency of the Chaldeans, hath been as overthrown by God, with Sodom and with Gomorrah. She doth not sit forever, nor continueth unto many generations. Nor doth Arab pitch tent there, and shepherds lie not down there. And Zeim have lain down there, and full have been their houses of howlings, and dwelt there have daughters of an ostrich, and goats do skip there. And Aim have responded in his forsaken habitations, and dragons in palaces of delight. And near to come is her time, and her days are not drawn out. Chapter 14. Because Jehovah loveth Jacob, and hath fixed again on Israel, and given them rest on their own land, and joined hath been the sojourner to them, and they have been admitted to the house of Jacob, and peoples have taken them, and have brought them in unto their place. And the house of Israel have inherited them, on the land of Jehovah, for menservants and for maidservants, and they have been captors of their captors, and have ruled over their exactors. And it hath come to pass, in the day of Jehovah's giving rest to thee, from thy grief and from thy trouble, and from the sharp bondage that hath been served upon thee, that thou hast taken up this simile concerning the king of Babylon, and said, How hath the exactor ceased? Ceased hath the golden one. Broken hath Jehovah the staff of the wicked, the scepter of rulers. He who is smiting peoples in wrath, a smiting without intermission. He who is ruling in anger nations, pursuing without restraint. At rest, quiet hath been all the earth. They have broken forth into singing. Even firs have rejoiced over thee, cedars of Lebanon, saying, Since thou hast lain down, the hewer cometh not up against us. Sheol beneath hath been troubled at thee, to meet thy coming in. It is waking up for thee, Rephaim, all chief ones of earth. It hath raised up from their thrones all kings of nations. All of them answer and say unto thee, Even thou hast become weak like us. Unto us thou hast become like. Brought down to Sheol hath been thine excellency, the noise of thy psaltery. Under thee spread out hath been the worm, yea, covering thee is the worm. How hast thou fallen from the heavens, O shining one, son of the dawn? Thou hast been cut down to earth, O weakener of nations. And thou saidst in thy heart, The heavens I go up, above stars of God I raise my throne, and I sit in the mount of meeting, in the sides of the north. I go up above the heights of a thick cloud, I am like to the Most High. Only unto Sheol thou art brought down, unto the sides of the pit. Thy beholders look to thee they attend. Is this the man causing the earth to tremble, shaking kingdoms? He hath made the world as a wilderness, and his cities he hath broken down. Of his bound ones he opened not the house. All kings of nations, all of them, have lain down in honor, each in his house. And thou hast been cast out of thy grave, as an abominable branch, raiment of the slain, thrust through ones of the sword, going down unto the sons of the pit, as a carcass trodden down. Thou art not united with them in burial, for thy land thou hast destroyed, thy people thou hast slain. Not named to the age is the seed of evildoers. Prepare ye for his sons slaughter, because of the iniquity of their fathers they rise not, nor have possessed the land, nor filled the face of the world with cities. And I have risen up against them, the affirmation of Jehovah of hosts, and have cut off, in reference to Babylon, name and remnant, and continuator and successor, the affirmation of Jehovah, and have made it for a possession of a bittern, and ponds of waters, and daubed it with the mire of destruction, the affirmation of Jehovah of hosts. Sworn hath Jehovah of hosts, saying, As I thought, so hath it not been? And as I counselled, it standeth. To break Ashur in my land, and on my mountains I tread him down, and turned from off them hath his yoke, yea, his burden from off their shoulder turneth aside. This is the counsel that is counselled for all the earth, and this is the hand that is stretched out for all the nations. For Jehovah of hosts hath purposed, and who doth make void? And his hand that is stretched out, who doth turn it back? In the year of the death of King Ahaz was this burden. Rejoice not thou, Philistia, all of thee, that broken hath been the rod of thy smiter. For from the root of a serpent cometh out a viper, and its fruit is a flying seraph. And delighted hath the firstborn of the poor, and the needy in confidence lie down. And I have put to death with famine thy root, and thy remnant it slayeth. Howl, O gate! Cry, O city! Melted art thou, Philistia, all of thee. For from the north smoke hath come, and there is none alone in his set places. And what doth one answer the messengers of a nation? That Jehovah hath founded Zion, and in it do the poor of his people trust. Chapter 15. The burden of Moab. Because in a night destroyed was Ar of Moab, it hath been cut off. Because in a night destroyed was Kir of Moab, it hath been cut off. He hath gone up to Bajith and Dibon, the high places, to weep. On Nebo and on Medeba Moab howleth. On all its heads is baldness, every beard cut off. In its outplaces they girded on sackcloth. On its pinnacles and in its broad places every one howleth, going down with weeping. And cry doth Heshbon and Elealeh. Unto Jahaz heard hath been their voice. Therefore the armed ones of Moab do shout. His life hath been grievous to him. My heart is toward Moab. Cry do her fugitives unto Zoar, a heifer of the 3rd year, for the ascent of Luhith. With weeping he goeth up in it, for in the way of Horonaim a cry of destruction they wake up. For the waters of Nimrim are desolations, for withered hath been the hay, finished hath been the tender grass, a green thing there hath not been. Therefore the abundance he made, and their store unto the brook of the willows they carry. For gone round hath the cry, the border of Moab. Unto Eglaim is its howling, and to Bir Elim is its howling. For the waters of Dimon have been full of blood, for I set on Dimon additions. For the escaped of Moab a lion, and for the remnant of Adamah. Chapter 16. Send ye a lamb to the ruler of the land, from Selah in the wilderness, unto the mount of the daughter of Zion. And it hath come to pass, as a wandering bird, a net cast out, are daughters of Moab at fords of Arnon. Bring ye in counsel, do judgment, make as night thy shadow in the midst of noon, hide outcasts, the wanderer reveal not. Sojourn in thee do my outcasts, O Moab, be a secret hiding place to them from the face of a destroyer. For ceased hath the extortioner, finished hath been a destroyer, consumed the treaders down out of the land, and established in kindness is the throne, and one hath sat on it in truth, in the tent of David, judging and seeking judgment, and hasting righteousness. We have heard of the pride of Moab, very proud his pride, and his arrogance and his wrath. Not right are his devices. Therefore howl doth Moab for Moab, all of it doth howl. For the grape cakes of Kir Hareseth it meditateth, surely they are smitten. Because fields of Heshbon languish, the vine of Sibmah. Lords of nations did beat her choice vines. Unto Jazer they have come, they have wandered in a wilderness. Her plants have spread themselves, they have passed over a sea. Therefore I weep with the weeping of Jazer, the vine of Sibmah. I water thee with my tear, O Heshbon and Elealeh, for thy summer fruits, and for thy harvest, The shouting hath fallen, and removed have been gladness and joy from the fruitful field. And in vineyards they sing not, nor shout. Wine in the presses treadeth not the treader. Shouting I have caused to cease. Therefore my bowels for Moab as a harp do sound, and mine inward parts for Kir-hareseph. And it hath come to pass, when it hath been seen, that weary hath been Moab on the high place, and he hath come unto his sanctuary to pray, and is not able. This is the word that Jehovah hath spoken unto Moab from that time. And now hath Jehovah spoken, saying, In 3 years, as years of an hireling, lightly esteemed is the honor of Moab, with all the great multitude, and the remnant is little, small, not mighty. Chapter 17. The burden of Damascus. Lo, Damascus is taken away from being a city, and it hath been a heap, a ruin. Forsaken are the cities of Aroer, for droves they are, and they have lain down, and there is none troubling. And ceased hath the fortress from Ephraim, and the kingdom from Damascus, and the remnant of Aram are as the honor of the sons of Israel, the affirmation of Jehovah of hosts. And it hath come to pass in that day, wax poor doth the honor of Jacob, and the fatness of his flesh doth wax lean. And it hath come to pass, as the gathering by the reaper of the standing corn, and his arm the ears reapeth. And it hath come to pass, as the gathering of the ears in the valley of Rephaim, and left in him have been gleanings, as the compassing of an olive, 2, 3 berries on the top of a branch, 4, 5 on the fruitful boughs, the affirmation of Jehovah, God of Israel. In that day doth man look to his Maker, yea, his eyes to the Holy One of Israel look, and he looketh not unto the altars. The work of his own hands, and that which his own fingers made, he seeth not, the shrines and the images. In that day are the cities of his strength as the forsaken thing of the forest, and the branch that they have left, because of the sons of Israel, it also hath been a desolation. Because thou hast forgotten the God of thy salvation, and the rock of thy strength hast not remembered. Therefore thou plantest plants of pleasantness, and with a strange slip sowest it. In the day thy plant thou causest to become great, and in the morning thy seed makest to flourish. A heap is the harvest in a day of overflowing, and of mortal pain. Woe to the multitude of many peoples, as the sounding of seas they sound, and to the wasting of nations, as the wasting of mighty waters they are wasted. Nations as the wasting of many waters are wasted, and he hath pushed against it, and it hath fled afar off, and been pursued as chaff of hills before wind, and as a rolling thing before a hurricane. At eventime, lo, terror, before morning it is not. This is the portion of our spoilers, and the lot of our plunderers. Chapter 18. Ho, land shadowed with wings, that is beyond the rivers of Cush, that is sending by sea ambassadors, even with implements of reed on the face of the waters? Go, ye light messengers, unto a nation drawn out and peeled, unto a people fearful from its beginning and onwards, a nation meeting out by line, and treading down, whose land floods have spoiled. All ye inhabitants of the world, and ye dwellers of earth, at the lifting up of an ensign on hills ye look, and at the blowing of a trumpet ye hear. For thus said Jehovah unto me, I rest, and I look on my settled place, as a clear heat on an herb, as a thick cloud of dew in the heat of harvest. For before harvest, when the flower is perfect, and the blossom is producing unripe fruit, then hath one cut the sprigs with pruning hooks, and the branches he hath turned aside, cut down. They are left together to the ravenous fowl of the mountains, and to the beast of the earth, and summered on them hath the ravenous fowl, and every beast of the earth wintereth on them. At that time brought is a present to Jehovah of hosts, a nation drawn out and peeled, even of a people fearful from the beginning hitherto, a nation meeting out by line, and treading down, whose land floods have spoiled, unto the place of the name of Jehovah of hosts, Mount Zion. The end of chapters 9 through 18 of the book of Isaiah, from the Young's Literal Translation of the Bible. Recording by Mark Penfold.